Our next presenter is an Urbana resident who is a recent convert to the world of professional art and design from environmental science research. Please welcome Irenka Carney.
So you may be sensing a subtle contradiction between that introduction and this first slide. I do pay the bills with art and design work. I have been doing art since I was very small, but I've spent most of my life saying, I can't do art right now because everything else is more important. Or I can't do art because I'm not a real artist. Now, part of this identity crisis is the fact that I do have most of my background in science. And yes, it is that cool all the time. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. It's true. And so this happened, that my identity became scientist, even though science and art got introduced to me at the same time. I was a child that was captivated by both. And yet this dichotomy happened. But we're talking about art tonight. So I first met art over finger paints and sidewalk chalk and mushy peas, because my mom said I could play with my food as long as I ate it eventually. And I also was fortunate enough to be in a public school system that had me in art classes, K through 8. But despite the support from my family and the community and no one telling me differently, by the time I got to high school, suddenly art and science weren't front runners for my attention. Art was the thing I did privately at home, a secret hobby. Science was the real thing, you know, it was somehow more legitimate, even though no one had told me that. So by the time I was going off to college, I didn't even think about it. I was gonna go to college to study science and secretly minor in art. But U of I didn't have an art minor. I didn't even realize that was gonna be an issue. So there I was at school with all my art supplies and no art minor to take. But even though I, put my art supplies under my lofted U of I dorm bed and went on with my science classes, that need to make art was there. I started to kind of go a little insane, as my college roommate can attest. And the solution didn't really comfort her anymore, because it meant sitting at my desk with wood and leaf debris I'd gathered on campus making these sculptures, because I was just going nuts. I was exploding with that need. And it was actually good. I made these sculptures that were the first things in my entire life I looked at, and I was like, that is some sweet art. I could be an artist. And I even had people say, that's great, I'd buy that. You could do that for a job. So I looked into transferring to the art school, or even transferring to a school that would let me take both science and art. And I filled out all the paperwork, and I did all the research, and always, at every decisive moment, I was like, you know what, actually science is the real thing, so let's just go back and do that and shoot some more lightning out of our hands, because that's a real job. And I eventually had people just saying to my face, seriously, I've seen your art. The only reason you're not doing art professionally is you. Get out of your own way. And in theory, this is when our hero says, oh my God, I've seen the error of my ways. Thank you so much. Now my life is all frolicking through daisy fields with paintbrushes. Whee! But no, I was like, no. Art's my secret, shameful hobby that is less important than everything. I'm gonna do science. But health problems took all the fun out of science. I could no longer do the messy stuff in the field. I was in a cubicle processing other people's data. It was terrible. So now science wasn't even fun. And then, after I got locked in that cubicle cage, the health problems that had robbed the fun out of science just got worse and worse and worse, and I spiraled until I felt like I wasn't even a person anymore. But that's another story, maybe another presentation. But the point is, it was only then, when I was at totally rock bottom and I didn't feel like I was worth anything, that I actually listened when my life partner said, I really think you should think about doing art. And I was like, well, sure, why not? Nothing matters. It really, whatever, sure. So it was like, sure, I'll do art now, and then if I ever get better, I'll go back to science, because that's a real thing. And I just, I applied for a program I knew I wasn't qualified to get in, just to give myself a goal, and I was just like, I'll just do it just 'cause. And then, after I made myself do that, I was like, okay, we'll try art. I probably won't succeed, and I can fall back on science, but suddenly science was the fallback plan, and art was something I was actually gonna try. I didn't think I'd succeed, but I was like, yeah, okay, I actually have an iota of momentum here. And then all of a sudden, I actually looked in the mirror, and initially it was, I'm an artist, but now I'm an artist. I can say that. And the minute I let myself see myself as an artist, I felt like a whole person. I didn't even know I was missing something. And then just everything was easier to manage, even my horrible health issues or whatever life threw at me. After telling myself, for some unknown reason, this dark gravitational force telling me art is shameful and not a real professional pursuit, I said, yes, I can do art. It's okay, and it's important. I can prioritize that. And then I realized that's really what it came down to. For some reason, and I don't even know how, I can't even think of, except for one really horrible woman I know, who ever said to me, why don't you save the art for a hobby? So many people said art is legit, but everything else, chores, friends, work, anything. I only let myself do art when all that was out of the way, and how often does that happen? So once I got healthy enough to stop being obsessed with my own little narcissistic journey, I realized that as alone as I felt, there were people all around me going through the same journeys that had to do with creative process. Art in all sorts of areas, whether it was in gardens or workshops or nurseries or improv groups. And that's why now, in addition to actually working as an artist, I run a community art program called Remaking Matters. It's all about, in addition to the fun, hippie, let's make art out of found objects and recycled stuff, it's really about accessibility. We can all be artists, we just have to choose. Right now, I'm gonna make some art. And sometimes people need to know the hows or get some materials, and that's what we do. And it just really comes down to, I don't understand how I spent most of my life, and a lot of us do, feeling like the act of creation is somehow not legitimate when it is so essential to being human. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because this is a kudo event, and I was actually paying attention during all the previous, presentations. So as much as my own little personal journey that you probably already knew how it was gonna end, ends with, I know I can do art, I should do art, and really, I must. But if you take anything away from this presentation, keep your eyes peeled for people that are spiraling and need someone to just look them in the eyes and say, you must let yourself create, because that's part of being human.